biggest misconceptions that we have is that we have full control over our emotions. Because to believe that you could, if I tell you right now, get angry, you can't really summon anger like that. You have to really focus on something that makes you angry, right? And that's sort of the bridge in between. So for example, I can't get myself into flow right now. But if I maybe go out and play some basketball, or have some spark of inspiration, that thing that's maybe a little bit out of my control, then I'll be able to really summon this mental state, which is beyond our capacity. One thing that I found that was really interesting, and this is a main concept that I think his name's Season Mihai.
No, they
Season
actually pronounce it Csikszentmihalyi.
Csikszentmihalyi.
Yeah, but who would know that? You wouldn't do it from by sounding that out.
Yeah, it's a very, very long last name. I think it's 14 letters.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a Scrabble name.
But he talks about this, and you talked about this in one of your papers. I thought this was so interesting. Your paper is called "When Perception is More Than Reality," and where we talk about, well, feeling a physical sense of exhaustion, feeling a physical sense of, we'll say, ego depletion, or something like doing tasks that are difficult. That actually is not as important, or we'll say not as important, as how you feel about how tired you are and how depleted you are. And I really want you to go into, well, what does that mean, and how can that actually affect our lives?
Yeah, this was something that was a really fun project that I worked on with one of my students. His name was Josh Clarkson. And Josh was a basketball player who was a
Hmm.
former athlete. And so one of the things he always was really interested in was that there was work that we were reading in our classes about this phenomenon called ego depletion. And basically the phenomenon was that if people do things that require a lot of self-control and a lot of concentration, that we only have a limited supply of kind of mental resources that we can devote at any one time. And if we sort of tap into those and utilize a lot of those, if we're doing some difficult tasks, so if you're having to do difficult problems, so let's say we don't like algebra or finite math problems and stuff, and so you're having to go through a homework set and stuff. After doing a couple hours of that, I mean, we say my brain's fried, like I gotta go take a break or do something. And so this work had basically shown that people hit that point when they're doing something that's challenging, that requires them to exercise a lot of self-control. And what happens if they try to do something else that again requires those same kinds of resources, their performance is going to go to pot. There's not going to do as well. So they show this depletion effect, right, where they can't do it afterwards nearly as well. And so they have to do something to replenish themselves or take a break or something to sort of recharge their batteries.
And it
And so they
seems,
saw this as being a really nice analogy to the physical system, which is if you tax your muscles and stuff at some point, you just have to give them rest, right? Otherwise, you can't go on indefinitely. Is that real though? And that was the question we began with our research. So the question was, he just felt like his own experience as an athlete, and I think many of us feel like this with our own experiences doing other everyday type of things that require self-control, is like, but can you push through things? I mean, an athlete that really is good, one of the things that we believe that they can do is push through pain, push through fatigue, and excel. So NBA, championships are going on right now and stuff. Game sevens, like who can play in the fourth quarter and really, do well under those, and who kind of lets the fatigue kind of get to them and have turnovers, miss free throws, don't get back on defense as well and stuff like that. I mean, we tend to think that the people who really rise to those occasions are the really gifted, really good athletes and stuff. And so his whole thing was like, how much of it is in your head as opposed to literally limitations that we have that are imposed by our physical or mental systems. And so what we tried to do in that work was to be able to create situations where we could convince people that even if they had done something that's really fatiguing, you're not really that fatigued. And so how could we do that? So we came up with this thing where we did, and again, this is a psychological sort of trick, I guess, a little bit, but we had people do a task that was pretty challenging, like math type of problems. But we had, or I think it was actually a proofreading task, we had
Was
them
the
do.
paper.
That was something that required a lot of, following these certain rules, and you had to cross out certain letters, but only under certain conditions, etc. And we had them do it on yellow paper. And we told people in some conditions that the reason why we had you do it on yellow paper, after they'd done it, by the way, was that yellow is the color of the sun, and it's a very energizing kind of color. And so it turns out that when people do things on yellow paper as opposed to other things, they don't feel the same level of kind of fatigue, or it's sort of an energizing kind of background and stuff. And so it has these effects on you, and people believed it. I mean, we were able to point to things that would believe. Or we could say, yellow is a color which actually, and it was a fairly dull yellow, like a Post-it note kind of yellow. So you could kind of go either way. It wasn't the bright, day glow color or something. So we said, it is a color that actually has been shown in research to be one that's sort of drab and sort of something that's sort of fatiguing on people's eyes and stuff. And so people who do things on this kind of paper actually feel sometimes more fatigued than they really are fatigued and stuff in situations. So we were able to manipulate how they perceive their state. So you've done something, it's something that does create some fatigue in some conditions, and others it was something that didn't really require much energy, but we told them that the paper might be the cause of what they're feeling. And so the thing is, what really mattered was what we told them, what they perceived their state to be, not how much they had done. So if they had done a lot, if we tell them they shouldn't be feeling that fatigue, okay, I guess I'm not really all that fatigued. I can still keep going. And then they were able to push through and do really, really well. In other situations, they hadn't really done that much, but they did it on the fatiguing paper. And it's like, maybe I am really tired. We can often convince ourselves. Just like somebody comes up to you and say, Nick, you look really tired today, right? I mean, did you sleep well? Are you okay and stuff? It's like, well, maybe I am a little bit tired today and stuff like that. I mean, then I feel like, oh, I can't really do a lot today because I'm still tired from last night and other things that I've done and stuff. And so it just seemed like our perceptions are really what's driving us. And of course, probably we can play around with perceptions a lot more than we can with our actual state. So
Yeah.
that opens up the possibility that we can do a lot of mental gymnastics to be able to convince ourselves that we have more energy than we think we do, or we can convince ourselves, I can't do it. I'm spent. Like I can't do it. So I need a break, or like,
Yeah.
you're gonna get a pretty half-assed performance today because I'm really fatigued. Right? So it's like,
Yeah.
how much of this is real and how much of it's in our heads?
It was very interesting. So one of the things that you found in that study, and this blew me away. Like this completely changed my opinion on it. So you found that when people were not tired, not depleted, right? If you told them that yellow is a rejuvenating color, right? Then they will do a lot better than if they saw that yellow was a drab, dull color, right? But for the people who were tired, you found, and this blew me away, that if you told them that yellow was a rejuvenating color, they actually did worse, and a lot worse, than the people that you told that yellow was a dull color. So for whatever reason, and I don't even know if we can come up with an explanation. I want to see what your explanation is on this. For people who are tired, if you tell them that yellow is a dull color, why will they do better than if you tell them that yellow is a rejuvenating color?
Because then they blame the reason why they were feeling tired on the color, because the things that we're doing were on this paper. Now you have me do something where that isn't involved anymore. Am I really tired? Or was it just that was making me feel tired? It wasn't the activity. It was just the being that background and that paper and stuff that was making me feel this way. Now I remove that and ask
Hmm.
you to do something else, and it's like, oh, well, now the obstacle's gone, right? I don't have to worry about that. So I actually probably have more energy than I thought I did, right? Because you
Yeah.
removed the cause of my fatigue, that paper. And then as you said, in the other case where they think that the paper should help them, it's like, you're taking away my crutch, you're taking away the thing that's energizing me. Maybe I'm not really that. So the
Oh,
thing is, we pointed them in directions of what's causing it. Is it you, or is it the paper that's making you feel the way you're feeling and stuff at
that's
this
so
point?
interesting. Yeah, I mean, it's a really interesting phenomenon. I see this with kids all the time, you know. And I remember this is what happened when I was dealing with kindergartners. I was a camp counselor for a while, and what would happen is, let's say a kid 5 years old falls and scrapes their knee, right? They fall and they scrape their knee, and their parent, or in this case me, walks over and says, "Oh my God, oh my God, we really need to get you packaged up. Like I start freaking out, and all this stuff happens. Well, what's going to happen is the kid is really looking at me and saying, wait a second, he's freaking out. Maybe I should be freaking out. But what about if I go up to him, and this is what I ended up doing? Someone scrapes their knee and I say, oh, dude, that was pretty awesome. That was really cool what you just did there. You just jumped, and I love what you did there, and you got a scar to prove it. Look how awesome that is. Let's get you bandaged up, and then we'll get you right back out there. And they'll look at me and they'll smile. They'll be so happy. They're like, wow, was it really that cool? And this is one of the things that's been proven experimentally on your case, but one of the things that I was able to prove in my daily life, it's like when we actually feel emotions, we're not the ones who feel the emotions. We look around to the environment and say, well, what does the environment tell me to feel? And I'm going to go and feel that.
Yep. It's fair. You're absolutely right. And so much of the, I mean, we presented a cue about the paper that wasn't another person, but it was another source, right?
Yeah.
But as you said, what's the most prominent source for most people and how they interpret their states and things like that? What other people around them are feeling, what other people around them are saying. So the reaction you gave, parents give, or a counselor would give, and stuff in that situation where they're like, oh my God, like this is something too catastrophic. Well, they'll start crying. If you sort of see it as something that's, it's no big deal. It happens to everybody, or as you said, call it a cool scar or something that as a result of something really daring that they just did and stuff. Their interpretation is, hey, I'm cool, right? I mean, it's no biggie, right? And so I can keep going. So it is really amazing how much power, in those situations, the responses of other people around us really do communicate.